it's interesting because besides Alex, every other man you choose in your life in this book, whether even if the men are terrible like Bill,
Yeah.
you can understand the attraction because there's a level of intensity.
Yeah.
There's an insane intensity to the men you choose. There's strangers that you have flings with that from the moment you start to write about them, like she's going through with it. I can just tell because you have that like in the corniest way, they always teach us this in school, that Henry David Thoreau, like you want to suck the marrow out of life thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so many of these characters in the book, when they appear, I'm just like, oh, Laurie's going for this.
Yeah.
She's going all the way because this is fucking insane.
Yeah.
And I relate because I was the kid. My mom will always say this about me. She's like, if I told you not to touch the stove because it was hot, you would just grab the stove. I once put my thumb in a blender when I was 6 just to like feel some shit. And I don't know your backstory, but like my house was just full of violence.
Wow. Yeah.
Full of violence. So regular shit just, I was like, I don't know, like this, the way people loved each other in my house was like to beat each other and make up. And so like I was attracted to intensity, and if it wasn't intense, I didn't want it.
Yeah.
And
see, that wasn't at all. I mean, I grew up in a very not a household that wasn't like that, but we also were not affectionate. We were not, nobody ever said I love you. I mean, I think it was implied, and I felt loved, I felt taken care of, but there was this kind of emotionally rigid sort of Catholic, whatever, informed by generations of World War II PSD or whatever. There was just a kind of a like, we don't talk about stuff like that,
you call the town Podunk, I think, at one point. And you call people rubes.
Yeah. And myself, I mean, I felt like I was trying to shake that off, but what you said about just wanting to feel something, I mean, that was my my response to it too. And also growing up, I was like a good girl, and I was went to church and got good grades and was very much like did everything that was expected of me. So I think once I was on my own to make my own decisions, it was like, well, now I'm going to do all the shit that I was too scared to do when I was younger.
Yeah, and you fucking did it.
Yeah.
Like you lived it for 20 years out here. You were in the streets. And it was, I just did not expect it reading it. It was like a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's the way you write about intimacy and attraction that was the hook for me. Do you think you've, through therapy and just time, gotten to the core of what you are attracted to?
I think so. I think that the thing is that through all of these experiences, I was like, well, this is all that's available to me, so I'm just going to do it. Because the other solution is to sit alone in the dark and eat wet cigarettes, and that seems really boring, right? So I'm going to like go out, and even though I'm going to get hurt, I want to do it. I've done it enough, like I've got it out of my system. Also getting sober. I think, what I was going to say is the thread through all of it was like, I really just wanted to be like loved and validated. And, I think I was looking for other people to do that for me, obviously in a very sort of fucked up way. But now that I'm old and I'm sober and I've been through all this therapy and I've experienced enough sort of shitty relationships that like, now I have like a very nice, stable, sane boyfriend who, like we just hang out, and it's great. And I feel like I know now how to validate within myself. I know that I've got value. I don't need to be validated by a relationship or a crazy experience or whatever it is.
Yeah, it felt like seeking affirmation of like existence in a way. And there's one passage when you actually write about Roger that gave me the most insight early on in the book. You write, I couldn't possibly presume to immediately sit on his bed, such as it was, so I instead sat down on the floor. Roger took off his shirt, stretched out on the mattress, and said, "Come here," which I did. We rolled around together for an exquisite hour or so, and then he fished a $20 bill out of his wallet, pressed it into my hand, and told me to take a taxi home. I put the cash in my wallet and decided to walk. It was summer, and my mind and heart were chaotic, explosive. The late-night light was orange-gray, the summer air humid and dank. I knew that fooling around with Roger was like standing on the tracks while a speeding train came screaming at me. If he even wanted to see me again, and boy did I hope he wanted to see me again, He was definitely going to use and discard me. I knew there was no future here. It would probably feel really fucking good for a while, and then it would feel really fucking awful. Still, I believed I was ready for it. I had been listening to a lot of Lucinda Williams and Emmylou Harris, and I wanted to try living my life like a country song. Drunk, immune to logic, impulsive, corny, lonely, and rooting around in bad places for something that could pass for love. That felt like the through line to like a Lana Del Rey album.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you really captured the emotions and feelings of just someone looking for that connection.
I will say too that I think there is a valid theory about being a drunk, and that's that once you really start to drink alcoholically or use drugs addictively, that your emotional development kind of stops, your maturity kind of hits a wall. And so I started binge drinking and, smoked a little pot in high school, but I smoked more pot in college. I think my emotional development kind of stopped in that teenage time when you are, you listen to a song and you want to act it out and you're looking out, it's the movie of your life. It's this very young romantic ideal. I mean, in my case, it got sort of curdled and twisted, but I think about, I used to be told that I was very mature, but I think I was quite immature for a very long time because I didn't grow emotionally beyond the age of 18 or 19 until I got sober. So all of this is, I had some great times and I had great stories. I have this book, but I was like a teenager in Arrested Development, but as a 20, 30, 40-year-old.
Yeah, I feel the same way. The biggest moments of growth in my life were the periods where I stopped drinking and I stopped smoking weed, right? Like I was on felony probation from the age of like 20 to 23. That was the biggest spike in growth. I ended up winning multiple awards at my school, going to law school. In law school, I would drink, but I didn't smoke weed. And then I opened Bauhaus. That came at the end of a period where I wasn't smoking weed. And then once I opened Bauhaus, I was just back doing everything, doing Molly, doing pills, smoking weed, drinking. And it wasn't until the pandemic. And I still was drinking when I was in Taiwan for the pandemic, but starting to slow down. And I just started to have days where I just sat alone. I lived in an apartment on the mountain and I just sat alone. And being alone helped me realize how actually lonely I was with other people. Partying, doing the same shit over and over, drinking and smoking every day. People had convinced me to microdose, and I was doing that. And, I came back from Taiwan after the pandemic and was just like, I need to change.
Yeah. Wow.
I didn't go to AA. I didn't go to meetings because I'd been in programs when I was like 19. I knew what it was. I just kind of did stuff myself, and I met my wife, and my wife had a health scare maybe 7 weeks after we were like officially dating.
Oh, wow.
And from that moment, we really stopped doing drugs. I had a few flare-ups, and from that moment, 2021 till now, and I have my son, I really drink so much less.
Yeah.
I threw my bong away finally, and I actually feel myself growing and changing. You're right. Like the periods where you're really abusing drugs and alcohol, it's very, very difficult to grow in any way. You're stuck.